Welcome. We're going to take this Smith speedometer apart. Very early Smith speedometer. As I said, I think it's probably very early in the 20th century. You don't need very many tools. Probably find that the the screws are manky, but with a bit of effort they will come out. I'm taking the dial off this first and then pointer, keeping all the screws fairly closely together so I know what I've got. Glass comes off, there's the bezel. This Speedo is going away to be nickel plated, and it's going on a very early Rolls-Royce, I believe. I'm just going to pop the hand off using my hand removing tool, which is fairly simple. There's the hand, and now with a little bit of love and affection I can get the dial off. There's the dial. Hope it's relatively clear, and I always try and put the dial away safely in a plastic bag so that I don't have to worry about it. And inside the bag at the back I generally try and put the pointer, so that's all, they're both kept safe. This speedometer has a little plastic shroud which needs to be carefully taken off, that hides the odometer. And this odometer is a very unusual design. I think it's a very early design. It's vertical numbers, and is completely unlike anything that Smiths later produced. So looking round the Speedo itself, we've got the input. This is where the cable goes into. These are Rotherham oilers, and there's one either end, and that oils the governor system, and there's the other end that oils the governor system. So what we'll do is we'll start taking bits of it apart. That's the trip mechanism there, reset of the trip, and let's see if we can start taking it apart. The back is actually pegged into the middle section, so to release that we've got to release this bit, and that back will come off. So keeping it relatively secure, see if I can release that. These are fairly rare, and were the earliest speedometers produced under the speedometer, and odometers really produced under the Smiths banner. There we are. That end cap comes off, and the back plate, the back part, is just pegged in. There are a couple of the holes, and there are the pegs. So I'll put that to one side, and I'm going to I think I'm going to reassemble this a bit, and then just run the Speedo up slowly, and we'll see whether we can make it work. That's all right. It's got to go there, that's got to go there, but that hasn't got to go there. There we are. That's in. Just locking back up with a couple of screws. I've got a feeling that between the frame and this bit there should be a paper gasket, and that is missing on this. So if I have these too tight, it makes a awful noise. What I'm going to do is to run it again so that we can see the operation of the governor, I hope. So I'm going to connect that back into there, put my split pin, which I've lost, there he is, back in. That, give it a little twinkle. And what happens is as the governor, this whole shaft, so the shaft drive comes in here, goes through this larger gear to the smaller gear, and as the whole thing whizzles round, these weights move out, and as the weights move out, this gear moves along here, and as that does that, so the needle moves. So what we hope is going to happen is if I start it off very gently, see how it's starting to spin, and there is a little bit of lost motion in these, and you can start to see how that moves along, and the hairspring, which is down here, is operating, and that's the hairspring will now pull that back. The way, or the sort of calibration of the device really is by the strength of these springs, and we can't alter the strength of the springs effectively. So there she goes. There we are. There we are. That's how that operates. Let's take it apart. You don't need very many tools, but you do need to be a little bit on the careful side. Okay, well, we've seen this end comes off, which it does, so won't worry too well. We'll take that off, I think, whilst we're about it. At least we know where that is. And we can, I think, withdraw the governor assembly. So that's the governor assembly. So as the balls swing out, or the weights swing out, the whole thing operates. It doesn't look in too bad condition, a bit dirty, nothing terrible. We're going to remove the odometer assembly, and the odometer assembly is held on here. So there's one screw and one peg, and also we have an adjustment, the trip adjustment there, which we got to undo in a minute, but I think we'll be able to take this out by unscrewing that screw. I've changed my mind. I'm going to undo the needle assembly, which, as you can see, is marked beautifully with 1600. In fact, everything really on this is marked with 1600, and it could be, I'm not really sure, it could be that the speedometer is related as a 1600 speedo, but I don't, 1600 turns per mile, but I don't think it is. I think it's about 13 or 1400. Well, there's the needle assembly really. There's the gear that it's driven off the main shaft. There's the hairspring, and there's the needle. That's where the needle would fit onto. So we need to keep that a bit safe. So that's taken out. Let's turn our attention to the odometer. So we'll undo that here. Got my finger on supporting that. Out that comes. Out that comes, and with luck that will just pop out the back. Come on, out you come, and that comes out. Okay, so there's the odometer assembly, and we'll talk about that later on. Get a bit of fluff in there. The trip assembly has to be unscrewed. The trip reset, and there's 3 screws on the bottom. The bottom one here is the trip knob adjustment, prevents the trip knob coming back too far, so it's got a little bit of a thingy on there. To get this shaft out, you need to unscrew the shroud, which is generally beastly tight. Screw the shroud, and then inside here is a little pin which we've got to tap out. We need a very small punch for that, and just knock the pin out, pull that pin out. Come on, that's it, pin's out, that's out. We can now undo the 2 screws next to where the trip is to pull out main shaft, or not main shaft, drive shaft, and off comes the foot and out comes the shaft. That shaft is quite wobbly in there, so we're probably going to have to do something about that, try and keep the noise. And this is also very, very wobbly here, so I'm probably going to have to re-bore. Yeah, it's gone oval, so that's going to have to be re-bored and a new bush put in there. And that looks to me as if it's bent, which is not a good sign. But apart from that, all looks it's pretty robust, and that's also marked 1600. I don't know what else is marked 1600. When they made clocks, they used to mark all of their clock. Well, a lot of clock parts were marked. I can't see a 1600 mark on there, but there is a large 1600 stamp on there. I'm not sure whether it's turns per mile or what it really means. 1600 in there. I can't see any mark on there, but the back plate, wherever that is, here it is, has got 1600 stamped on there, and again here, and a 3. I'm not quite sure what that means. It could have other numbers on it, but I can't see anything at the moment. So there we are. That's pretty well the whole thing taken apart. Not much to it really. I'm not going to take this apart on this stage. We're going to do a little bit of thinking about that before that comes apart, but that's not particularly complicated. It's just a series of gears driving the driving all the little numbers. It's rather lovely though. Quite unusual to see the horizontal vertical numbers like that. Pretty, very pretty. So that's how to take it apart. Very few tools, and that's it. Right,